Hello, welcome to another episode of Your Right to Know, brought to you by the Fitchburg Republican City Committee. Today we're going to be talking with our favorite guy, Sheriff Lew, and Worcester County Sheriff updates. Good evening, Lew. How are you doing?
Andrew, I'm doing great. How are you?
Well, welcome back to Your Right to Know.
Well, I love being here with you and Mary. You guys do a great job, and I'm always honored to be on with you and get a chance to talk to the good folks of Fitchburg.
Well, it's been far too long since the last time you've been on here.
Definitely.
And you have been extremely busy. Tonight, we're going to discuss three topics. There's a rumor that you may be running for governor of the Commonwealth. Second, we want to talk to you about the immigration crisis and how it's impacting the Sheriff's Department and working with Homeland Security. And finally, a status of the jail system. So let me first ask you this. How long have you been sheriff in Worcester County?
I have been sheriff. I'll just go a quick preview on that. I was a practicing lawyer for a while. Went, traveled around the country, lived in 5 states, but made my way back home once I got married and had kids, and bought my grandfather's house, and didn't run for public office till I was 40 years old. So I like to mention that because I think it's important to know that not everybody career politicians. I never set foot in the political arena till I was 40 years old. So I got elected to rep for 8 years. Then got elected as sheriff in 2011. So I'm now in my 14th year as sheriff.
Wow.
So there you go. 20 years in this public service industry, and it's been a great run. I've loved every minute of it, and I'm honored to be sheriff, and I love the job. And that's how long I've been sheriff, if you can believe that, because I remember you guys being there for me when I first ran. And
absolutely.
That was a long time ago now.
Back in the Tea Party days.
Yes, 2010 and 11, my God, did we have a lot of just unbelievable amount of energy around here with Scott Brown winning and all that. It was really exciting.
Scott Brown's win was really the catapult that started the whole Republican movement in this area.
You could feel grassroots. There was a lot of grassroots support. I mean, hand signs being made by hand. The standouts used to struggle to get 5 people. You'd have 50. People would feel something needs to change, and that was a great time. And that kind of inspired me to run for sheriff, candidly, because I saw the turnout in Worcester County, and I said, my God, I mean, the right Republican can win these county seats. We just hadn't had a lot of those candidates come along, so I believed we could do it. And as you know, with this area being very helpful for me, we won overwhelmingly.
And kept winning overwhelmingly.
Kept winning overwhelming. Still here.
That's because you're doing a good job. You've earned that one.
Thank you. Thank you.
So the next question is the elephant in the room, so to speak. Are you running for governor?
Okay, we'll put it right on the table. So I want to answer it this way, and that I don't have the answer to that right now. I have not made up my mind, nor do I need to make up my mind at this point.
Yeah, you still have another
about 18 months.
Yeah, it's 18 months or so before the election, maybe a little longer. You don't wait till the end, of course not. But I'm just telling you how this conversation came to be, because I think it's important to understand. So, I've done, as I mentioned, my background, and I've really done the job of sheriff that I thought was best for people. And it's a great job because, I don't have a legislative voting record. You don't do that as sheriff. You focus on public safety, which I've been proud as a former prosecutor and someone who cares about the public safety to work hard to keep people off the streets that need to be off the street, some for a very long time. But also understanding that a equally important part of their job is the rehabilitative process. And you want to, when you get people off the street, you want to give them quality programming. So if they turn their lives around and they get out, and many of them do, you want to make sure they do everything possible so they don't recommit crime, keep us safer. So for public safety, it has 2 aspects of the job. And one is the actual incarceration, but the other is the rehabilitation. I don't think as a sheriff you're doing a job if you can't focus on both. And they're very different, and they come with a lot of different challenges. And as you know, this place, Worcester County, had a long history of patronage in politics and hiring people because they knew somebody, not because they were committed to doing the job right and caring about the people. And I'll be candid with you guys. I mean, I know there's some bad people in there, but there's a lot of people. I grew up in the 70s, so I know, but for the wrong day, I could have ended up in there. It was a crazy time, and I don't judge people. I'm not a judge. If I want to be a judge, I'll talk to the governor. Right now, my job is to help those people come to our care, custody, and control if they want to help themselves. If they don't, that's their choice. So anyway, I've loved this job, and I'm continuing to love this job. And somebody, I don't think it was you guys, but somebody started a draft Sheriff Lew for governor movement.
Okay.
That's how I got brought into this conversation.
Is that how it all started on social media?
Yes, and town committees were emailing around, there's a draft Sheriff Lew for governor, And quite frankly, I was a little skeptical of it because I thought, number one, I don't know who they are. And number two, I didn't want people to donate. I thought it was a scam. Like, donate $20. And all of a sudden people started to donate money. And I told people initially, I said, I don't know this movement. I'm not familiar with it, so I'm not encouraging it. But I pretty quickly realized it was a guy that down the South Shore, somewhere down the Fall River, New Bedford area, and he started movements on initiative petitions. And I don't know him to this day. I haven't spoken to him. But I mean, candidly, I'm kind of grateful to him. He thought I could do the job. He said, let's draft Sheriff Lew. It got a lot of people excited. A lot of people were like, yes, that's a good idea. He'd be a good candidate. So when I was first called by the Boston Herald, I said, as I think anybody would say in my position, well, I'm honored to be thought of as somebody that would be a good candidate for governor. And they said, are you going to do it? And I said, well, I don't have to make a decision, so I haven't ruled anything out. So that statement led to multiple articles that Sheriff Lew's either running or Sheriff Lew's going to consider running, and all these people, and I mean a lot of people reaching out to me. And this is what I want to answer the question to, because this really is the heart of what we're going to talk about right now. I heard from dozens of Democrats, dozens of independents, dozens of Republicans, please run for governor. We are on the wrong track. We need a governor that will put Massachusetts first. Democrats told me we're very disappointed in Governor Healey. She has not been engaged. She's let this, and we'll talk about what she's done, but I'm giving you the overall. Right. It was very clear to me that a lot of people in Massachusetts, whether it's 51% or 60% or 40%, believe we need a new direction in the executive office. I think we feel as Republicans, it's so important to have a two-party system, a functioning two-party system. You got a legislature overwhelmingly Democratic. You got a governor come in. She thinks, in being Governor Healey, she thinks she has the control of everything. They haven't challenged her that much. It's been a runaway train. Let's be honest. So we'll talk some of the details. But that's the answer to the question. I don't know. I didn't say I was set out to do it. I can say this. My family and my closest friends didn't get excited about it because they know me. And I'm 63, and it's important consideration. I mean, if I was 50 years old, I think I would do it without question. I've always thought about serving as governor or higher office. I wanted to have a compelling reason to do it. I just don't do it for ego. I don't need that at this point in my life. I want to do a job that I love and that I can do, I think, well and serve the people well. And I feel as sheriff, I've been able to do that. And I've never had a job more than 10 years, so this is uncharted territory for me. So I do have that itch of sort of like my life cycle. But you also realize when you get older, you'll may figure this out someday, Andrew, that,
I've already figured it out.
Well, you and I are similar, so, we probably in a place you look at quality of life. So I'm at a point now where I'm evaluating what I really want to do. Does governor is a job that I burn to do? I don't have to make that decision today. But I am overwhelmed by not only the amount of people that are supporting me to do this, which, I appreciate. Everybody says, like, one of my friends responded. I said, I don't know. He said, well, my dad, he was an older Greek gentleman, very philosophical. He said, my father always said, 100 lashes on someone else's back doesn't seem that bad. And you know what I mean? So everyone wants you to run for governor because they want to you be governor, but they don't have to.
But they don't have to do the work.
12-hour campaigning and days. And,
all over the state.
And grinding through a legislature that wouldn't be very friendly to what I want to do. And I'm not outright saying, no, I'm not. I'm just telling you, I'm giving you a straight, honest answer. I'm thinking about it, but I'm absolutely convinced that the people have made a decision that they're ready to change direction. And Governor Healey, and this we'll talk about some of the, I think a question you asked me is, how do you feel she's doing as the job?
That would be my next question.
Yeah. And I'm not afraid to answer it. Very straightforward. And it's not, I don't want people to listen to me and say, oh, he's running for governor. I'm just telling you what I would say as a representative, as a senator, as a sheriff, and as a citizen of Massachusetts. I don't think she's done the job very well. I don't think she's been properly engaged, and I will point fingers expressly to her policy on the border crisis that Joe Biden created. Yes. Open border. So in the last 4 years, we've gone to a state that now has had a country that has had over 10. Nobody knows the number, but let's call it 10 to 15 million people coming in an open border. Bad enough. And there's a criminal element. And I want to be clear about this with you guys who are my friends, and I say this on your show. I do not blame a lot of people for coming to the United States. I don't blame them. I've been to El Salvador. I've been to Guatemala. I've been to Mexico many times. I don't blame people for wanting to come to the greatest country on earth for a better life. I blame our policymakers for having such backwards, stupid policies that would have open borders and then take open borders, 15 million people. Governor Healy puts out the welcome mat. Come to Massachusetts and we're going to pay for everything. Your housing, your EBT cards, phones, healthcare, education, put you up in hotels. We're going to give you, and this is a fact, every person that's staying in those taxpayer-funded hotels are getting taxpayer-funded meals put out by restaurants. So to a tune of $2.5 billion. Now let's back up.
And that's just Massachusetts.
Just Massachusetts. Now, let's back up. This is part of the thing that I want to expose because it needs to be exposed. I think anybody sitting there at home not knowing how we paid for this would be asking themselves, you're saying we paid $2.5 billion, but I haven't noticed cuts to my police and fire and teachers, so how's this possible? I'll tell you how it's possible. Joe Biden passed the American Recovery Act that nobody wanted or needed when he became president. And he put billions, I think even trillions of dollars into this economy that nobody wanted or needed. It was called the American Rescue Act, or whatever it was called, remember?
Yes, I remember.
And Massachusetts got billions, I think $9 billion, okay? Now, think about this for a minute. Everybody's asking, how did inflation get so horrible under the Biden administration? Well, because you injected trillions of dollars into our economy. It's insane. Now, bring it to Massachusetts. I have got this confirmed by asking people in Beacon Hill in the legislature. There was a fund that she set up with $2.5 billion in it from the COVID money that was supposed to be used for infrastructure, for bridges, to help recover the economy. It wasn't set up for something like this, but they used the nuance in the law to set up a special account with remarkably $2.5 billion. It's gone now.
Yeah, because she's looking to refund it.
Now she's looking to refund. The legislature's starting to ask more questions because this is real money now. Think about this. I just read something. I can't say every word I'm saying is 100% accurate. Look it up. I'm just telling you what I believe. But I also read something recently that said if you took the homeless population, and by the way, when Governor Healy ran for office, what did she say? We have a housing crisis in Massachusetts. We have a homelessness crisis in Massachusetts. Who in their right mind would bring in 100,000 homeless people to Massachusetts where we have no ability to house them, nowhere to go, and think that's a good policy? Under what was initially set up, as you all know, the right to shelter law. Right to shelter law was set up in the 1980s to do what exactly we all want. If a parent, a mother, is evicted, she's got children, we don't want those children homeless. It usually affected a few thousand people a year. She expanded that to 100,000.
And it was temporary.
Temporary situation, which she expanded to the whole world. So back to the point, do I blame people for coming to America? Hell no. Do I blame them for coming to Massachusetts? Hell no. But I will blame Joe Biden and Maura Healey every single day for what they allowed to have happen. And I'm even going to get a little further. We'll talk about it more later when it comes to criminal stuff and detainers and working with ICE. But as sheriff, I work with a lot of community and the people, and I give, I do coats.
You're out all the time.
I handle food. I give to people. I don't check their immigration status. I try to help the community. But the bottom line is people now are calling me. We're afraid, Sheriff. We're afraid. We don't know if we can. And I say to them, I can't tell you not to be afraid because there's a problem in America right now that Donald Trump ran on that he was going to fix this problem, predominantly first criminals, okay? But if you're afraid, I hope you're looking at the people that did this to you. Because you want to hear something interesting? When Barack Obama was president, he deported 3 million people. I never heard anybody squawk about that.
No.
When Donald Trump was president, for 4 years, he deported 900,000 people. I never heard anybody say anything about it.
And they blamed him for the kids in cages.
Well, they blamed him for everything.
That was under the Obama administration.
Sure was.
I have to mow my lawn in the summer. I'm going to blame Donald Trump. I mean, he's blamed for everything.
Well, but then take it to the next step. So now people are afraid, and I say to them, you might be afraid, and maybe you should be afraid because, things have gotten out of control. But I hope your fear turns into anger. It turns to the people who did this to you.
Right.
Because Joe Biden opened the borders to 10 to 15 million people.
Sure.
He's the one that created this factor that we have to deal with right now. And Maura Healey put the welcome mat out, and we all know that she's been very lax, if at all responsible for background checks. We've heard about hundreds of crimes happening this year in the shelters.
Terrible things are happening in the shelters.
Not only they're heinous crimes. Some of them are child abuse, child rape,
incest,
and they're getting moved around. They're not even being incarcerated. They're not being arrested. They're being shuffled around. So honestly, if you ask me how Governor Healey's doing, I would say a failure, an F. And it's predominantly because this is a serious situation. she may have helped certain things. I could look at the MBTA and say, well, she's made some progress there. I don't call her out on everything. But the issue of her times that she completely dropped the ball on is the migrant crisis and the money and the crime and things that come along with it. And she's let the people of Massachusetts down because the governor of Massachusetts should put Massachusetts first. And frankly, she hasn't done it.
And the health and safety of the people
Health
first.
and safety, the whole state. So everyone I talk to when they talk about my candidacy or anyone's is they're really concerned about this situation.
Do you think they look at you as a sheriff? I mean, I think it's pretty exciting for you that somebody from Fall River, not even in Worcester County, would be the one that would sort of throw out this trial balloon that you should run. That's a really good sign, because one of the questions I had was, as sheriff of Worcester County, you're well known and well respected in Worcester County and maybe some of the bleed off areas on the side. But this is now becomes a statewide commitment where you have to now sell yourself to an entirely different audience. And yet you tell me that you've got this trial balloon set by somebody in Fall River, not even close to our area, which is very applaudable or laudable for you.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's like, at least it wasn't like somebody doing it either in conjunction with me or somebody that knew me well and was trying to get me down. Somebody I didn't even know. So, yeah, I sure appreciate that.
Do you think the sign of the times where people are fearful, do you think maybe that's part and parcel why they looked for a sheriff, a law and order sheriff, a recognizable law and order sheriff, to be the next governor, why that's being floated? It's not just because you're Sheriff Lew, you're a good guy, everybody loves you, you do great things in the community, you run a jail, but it's because of the type of sheriff you are, a true law and order sheriff, that they're kind of gravitating towards you.
Well, I think sheriff is an interesting position, and being in Massachusetts, it's a little different than other parts of the country. You know, sheriffs are oftentimes thought of as the guy with the gun in the holster, pulling you over on the side of the road and arresting you. And in Massachusetts, we don't do that. Right. So, you know, a funny story. And I told this recently to someone. I said, you know, when Howard Baker, and if you remember him, but he ran for president, I think in 1980, old Tennessee senator.
Yes.
But he told his grandmother first. He said, Grandma, I'm going to run for president of the United States. I wanted you to know. And she said, Howard, appreciate that, but why don't you run for something powerful like sheriff? So there's different perceptions, but in Massachusetts, because we're not that type of person, we are law and order. I am a firm law and order sheriff. But you also have that compassionate side where you help rehabilitate and you tackle on issues like the opioid epidemic that I was talking about for 15 years, and people in recovery and mental health. And we've made massive investments in these areas. So we are compassionate people. Mass sheriffs are compassionate people, but we also understand we took the oath of office to protect and serve the people of our community, and I will never implement a policy that endangers people, never. So I will hold you in facility. I'll work with my federal partners where I can, my local partners where I can, to protect our people, and I'll rehabilitate people to help protect our community. So I don't know the reason, but I think sheriff can be a good place to come into it because you have credibility when it comes to issues of public safety.
Right. Yeah. And especially at this time, and I know in the past, we won't get into it, but at one point in the jail system, which is different than a prison system, you have people who are in for 1 year or less. Not this is severe crime, and at one point you had the majority of your inmates were drug crimes. Right. So you are firsthand knowledge of the fentanyl crisis and the drug crisis
100%.
That's been brought in by these cartels and floated through the states. On that, now could you tell us, one of the things that I was thinking of is your jail system and the ICE. There's so much controversy about ICE. In Massachusetts specifically. You couldn't, the criminals would walk in the front door of the jail or of the courthouse or the sheriff, the police station, and out the back door. I mean, they were getting away with crime. How did that impact the sheriffs?
Well, I'll explain how I've been working, because frankly, with all the hysteria and all the allegations, I've done nothing different than I've been doing for 14 years. And that's what people like, oh, now you're doing this, or you're politicizing things. I said, no, I've been doing the same thing, except I see there's a loophole that needs to be closed because it's gotten more significant, and I'll explain. So when I got into office, I made a promise to the people that elected me and worked with me that I would work with all my officials, including federal ICE officials, local state police, local community police departments, whatever we can do to keep our community safe. So what we were able to do is I have access to, when people come into my facility, I can communicate with the Homeland Security people. And I just tell them, for example, today, we got 15 people that came to our jail today. They arrested over the weekend or they just couldn't bail out. They come to our jail. I send that information to them and say, here's what we got. If there's anybody you're interested in, let me know. You put a detainer on them. So they'll look them over. They'll look over the people. They'll determine, say, 5 of them are here illegally. They're undocumented. And they'll say the crime that they committed, say the majority of them, they're like, we'd like to put a detainer on them, Sheriff. So they'll send me a paperwork that says, this is a person of interest for ICE. And when they're about to be released, let us know. We were allowed to, for my first 10 years, hold these people for 48 hours.
Okay.
So I'd call ICE and I'd say, now this is the problem. It's not a big problem when someone's serving their sentence, because I think everybody should serve their sentence before they're deported, frankly. Think about it. Mm-hmm. You're going to deport someone who's a serious offender, or armed robber, or a brutal attacker when you could have them serve their sentence, then deport them?
Yeah.
Because then they can come back.
Yes.
Right.
So I'm like, finish your sentence. They agreed. When they finish their sentence, let us know. We'll come pick them up. No problem. We've never had a problem with that. Problem is, what if someone's in my facility and they get bailed out today at 5 o'clock, or they go to the courthouse to get a bail review, they get bailed out. They walk out the door. We had a child rapist, we had someone who had attempted murder on his girlfriend with an automobile and many other charges, get bailed out and walk out the door for $2,500. And we could not hold that person. The courts cannot hold that person. Now, let me explain one thing. That came about in 2019. It was a called Lund decision. And then Attorney General Maura Healey sued the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that it's illegal detention of people who have not been convicted of a crime to hold them for that 48 hours. And when that decision came down, she celebrated it. You don't hear her talk about it much anymore.
That's when she said it's not illegal to be illegal in Massachusetts.
Yeah. And she said that this is a great step forward for like human rights that we have to protect. And I'm like, you're the Attorney General, and you're suing on behalf of people who are illegally in the country and have been charged with crimes. Now look, we can have a discussion about it. You're a counselor, you could make the argument that they have not been convicted yet. But my point is, ICE has identified them as a serious threat to public safety. Mm-hmm. They have a detainer on them. I don't have the ability. So what happened in the past? If they got it bailed out, I'd say, not so fast. Call ICE. We're coming to get them tomorrow. I have every right. Now I lose that right. So now people walk out the door. So what would I do that anybody else would do? I brought the attention of the legislature and filed legislation so now we can hold people. And I think our bill only calls for 36 hours. Like, give me 12 hours. Give me some window of time. This is the part that I find astonishing. That's the issue, 100%. I've worked with ICE for 14 years. I'll continue to work. I can say this. I've heard other departments, other sheriff departments, they don't work with ICE.
Well,
that's their problem. That's their issue.
That was going to be one question. Are you getting any backlash from Beacon Hill because you are working with ICE? Because
of course.
You hear, oh, we're not going to abide by any kind of ICE decision, or they don't want to work with the Trump administration, and it seems like you're just blowing them off. Because obviously you're doing your job, you're doing what you're supposed to do. I don't, and I'm saying this, and I'm very serious when I say this, that anybody who does not think that a sheriff or a police department should hold someone who's illegally in the country and has been accused of a serious crime, and ICE, and by the way, working with ICE for 14 years, I know there was a time that people demonized ICE and all this. I've been working for 14 years. There are people that love this country. They're trying to keep our community safe. They don't round people up. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen going forward, but I can tell you in my 14 years, I've never seen it. They've told me point blank in my office, we don't have the resources to do that. We're just trying to find people that we believe under their rights show to be a significant risk to public safety, a person of interest, and all I'm trying to do is hold that person to give ICE an opportunity to come get them. So I believe, I could be wrong, I think supports that? About 90% of the people in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And it's that 10% that advocating for things that I don't understand. Like, I can hear your arguments, but I don't think anybody with an understanding of public safety agrees with you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to worry about those 10% loud people when I know the majority of people who understand the issue, they'll be manipulated. But if you understand the issue, and it's as simple as I just said, a sheriff or law enforcement should have the right to detain someone for a few hours if there's an ICE detainer on them and the ICE says we are interested in picking them up. You should have the right to do it, and I'm going to continue to advocate for that.
Well, one of the things that we're finding is that it's not all moms and pops with little kids that are coming across the border illegally. It's cartels, drug pushers, and we know asylums and jails are being let out, and those people are escorted across the border into our country.
I've been to the border twice. I know what's going on. There's a human trafficking going on. There's cartels. I'm really happy to hear that the administration has declared the cartels to be a terrorist organization, because they frankly are. Yeah. And just so you know, because your audience may or may not know this, but I've studied the cartels. When you talk about these Mexican drug cartels, you're talking about internationally sophisticated corporations. These are billion-dollar operations. They have better satellite equipment than the United States Army has. They are better armed than many parts of the U.S. Army. They are a terrorist organization. They terrorize the border communities of Mexico and the interior. They are horrific. The government's essentially afraid of them, and they've taken over. And it's sick and sad for those poor people in Mexico who are good people, want to live a life, and they have no ability because of these cartels. So what they've done, they know that the money is made in the U.S., so they use human trafficking while they're sexually abusing these poor people. They're humiliating them. They're charging them tens of thousands of dollars to get across the border, along with fentanyl, which is coming in through China and coming through. The border is just, I mean, there's a phrase, which I'm going to mention to you because I've been on the border and I've heard about it. They call it silver or lead. And it's like you can take the silver, which means I'm going to bribe my border agent, and they'll go to a border agent. I'm talking to border agents who have told me this. They will tell me, we know that your wife is Sue. She goes to work at 8 o'clock. She drops your kids at this school, and we know where they are. And you've got two choices. You can accept this bribe to let us put the stuff across the border, silver, or you're going to get lead. You choose.
Wow.
And these are low-paid people.
Yeah.
How would you want to be in that situation? It's a criminal enterprise of a proportion that's incredible. So that's been a big part of what's going across this border. And it's really ruining the United States in many ways. And we need to get a handle on this. So, I mean, but back to the sheriff and the local, yes, we do see a criminal. There's been an increase in detainers filed at the Worcester County Sheriff's Department, for example. We used to average, I think we averaged about 30 a year in 2022. We had about 50 in 2023. We had about 70 in 2020. No, we over 100 last year, 2024. So we're seeing an increase in crime, increase in detainers, all because of our crazy policies.
Yeah.
So I don't know anybody with common sense that doesn't want to see our community be a better, safer place. That's not vilifying people who have come into this country. It's vilifying the people who are coming with the wrong intentions and getting the heck out of here. And if I can play a role in doing that, sign me up.
Well, we'll sign you up because, believe it or not, we're down to our last minute, our last few seconds of the show.
That's it.
That's it. And what can I say? We thank you so much for joining us again on Your Right to Know. And we thank you for watching Your Right to Know and joining us, Andrew and I, tonight, and Sheriff Lew. And we want you to know that your grassroots organization of your local city or town Republican committees are the only organizations that are going to hold dear your rights to life and liberty, safety and security. And we support all the conservative values that will bring forward your own public health and safety. We thank you for watching us tonight. We would like you to always think of the GOP as an organization that holds dear your personal rights and your freedoms, because to us, GOP stands for growth, opportunity, and prosperity for all people. And we always stand for freedom. Thank you and good night.
America, we stand for freedom. So let us all unite to yearn and strive for our republic that reflects our values, that preserves our rights, and goes forth in power and might, that reflects our values and preserves our rights.